Formal and informal communication. Here we're talking about the basis, the structure of the information.
Yeah.
That's what formal and informal communication is about. So that if you are a school student or in employment, how do you receive messages which are important to you? You may read notices on the notice board, receive reports, emails, or memos, or attend official meetings. These are all examples of formal communication. So are they the only way you learn about what is going on in your organization? Almost certainly not. So information that passes through the school, companies, or meetings, these are formal situations. So they are formal communication method.
Yes.
So you are also likely to receive messages through informal channels, such as meetings with friends or contacts with others in the canteen or at break times. These informal or unrecognized meetings are sometimes referred to as grapevine. Sometimes these informal channels can be used by managers to try out the reactions of new ideas, such as a new shift system in the factory, before formally communicating details of the new system. If the reaction from the grapevine is negative, management may not introduce the new idea at all. At other times, the informal channels can spread gossips and rumors, which is unhelpful to managers. Managers, however, cannot prevent the informal links existing between people in the organization. So it is informal because it is out of the formal office or the formal settings. So people can just, out of the class, we talk. It is out of the class. In the class, we have a formal setting. But out of the class, or when the class is done, we could have different communication. That's informal.
Yeah.
So the informal settings are where people could express themselves without thinking about how official the environment is or policies are surrounding it. So here they can express themselves, they can call themselves names, and they can associate with each other freely. So with that free association, they might be able to express their feelings. So managers sometimes use this platform to gather information that will be useful for decision making.
Yes.
And most of the time, also gossips happen through informal communication. People talk about other people.
Mm.
But you cannot stop it. That's the point there. You can't stop gossips. You can't.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but official, formal communication, it has do's and don'ts, unlike informal. I think that point is clear.
Yeah.
So the direction of communications. So there's a typical organizational chart for a business is shown below. So for communication to go on within an organization, it has to be through the organizational chart. A chart shows ways in which information communication is being passed from top to bottom or from bottom to the top.
Yes.
Within an organization, and it also shows each department and how they are linked to one another. It also shows the hierarchy within the organization. So this is what organizational chart talks about.
Mm.
So we can't have an organizational chart without talking about communication. So let's check each organizational chart and how the direction of communication goes. The ROA, let's say ROA shows downward communication. This is when messages are sent from managers to subordinates. It can be used for instructions or statements or important business decisions. It does not allow for feedback. If these messages have to be passed through many levels of hierarchy, then the original meaning of the message could become distorted. So for ROA, it means the message is going from the manager to the subordinates. Do you get it? We call it downward communication. It's going down.
Yes.
From managers to the subordinates. Here, there's no need for feedback. So that's why the arrow is going down. So it's only what the manager said you just act upon. Yeah. So ROB shows upward communication. This is when the message feedback is passed from subordinate to managers. So here, look at ROB. So it's upward. Feedback is given to the managers.
Yes.
So ROB is upward. This is when message feedback is passed from subordinates to managers, as we have seen. Such feedback can be an essential part of effective communication. Workers in an organization have much to offer by being involved in the communication process. They should not be afraid of contributing to discussions or meetings. The organization has much to gain when the managers are prepared to listen to and act upon messages received from those lower down the organization. So if it's upward, it means feedback is required, and it means that you are involving subordinates. And involving subordinates makes them to feel like they are also valued within the organization. That motivates them to do more. But if you only take decisions yourself and you don't even want to hear from them, you don't want to get their point of view, they might be demotivated and even leave your organization. For ROC, it shows horizontal communication, sometimes referred to as lateral communication. This occurs when people are at the same level and the organization communicate with each other. They are at the same level. That's why it's horizontal. We call it lateral. So they are of the same level. They are able to communicate with each other. That is lateral. So information and idea can be exchanged at both formal and informal meetings. This can be a cause of conflict between departments. For example, if marketing informs operations that the quality of output is so poor, that consumers are returning goods at faulty. So what we have to understand here is that both formal and informal communication can be used to exchange ideas, but it just depends on how you present such idea. You get it, like what they just said there, that the marketing department is informing the operations department that what they are producing is of no quality, that consumers are returning it. It's a communication. So how communication barriers arise and how to reduce them or remove them. So before we go to communication barriers, what they are trying to say in essence is that communication, both informal and formal communication, are important and essential. But how we present them determines if it's going to be effective or not effective. Now we go to the barriers in communication. We're talking about problems in communication. As we saw on page 116, there are 4 parts. Okay, there are 4 parts to any successful communication: sender, receiver, medium, and the feedback. Communication can fail if any one of these 4 parts does not operate as it should. If one part fails, it would be called a barrier to effective communication. This would cause a breakdown in communications, which could lead to serious problems for the organization. So there's barrier to communication if either the sender, the receiver, the medium, or the feedback is having a fault. So we start with the sender. Are you there? Yeah. Communication barrier. Problems with the sender. Now, we are talking about problem associated with the sender. 1, language which is too difficult is used. Jargon or technical terms may not be understood by the receiver. So if the sender is using some terms that the receiver does not understand, it becomes a jargon. Then how do you get the point here? Yeah. The sender is passing the message, is transmitting the message, but the sender is using terms that is not understandable. That means you're just saying jargons. So there's no effective communication. So how can you correct this? The sender should ensure that the message uses language which is understandable. Use of jargon or terms which are too technical should be avoided. So for you to effectively stop the use of jargons, what you have to do is use languages that are understandable based on the level of the receiver. Then to be effective. The sender uses verbal means of communication but speaks too quickly or not clearly enough. The receiver will not be able to understand. So what do you have to do? The sender should make the message as clear as possible. Feedback should be asked for to ensure the message is being understood. So if the sender is too fast or is not speaking clearly, so what it should do is to speak clearly and ensure that he or she asks for feedback to be able to be sure that the message is understood. Okay, so the sender communicates the wrong message or passes it to the wrong receiver. So the sender must make sure that the right person is receiving the right message. So that's another problem. If you are sending the message to the wrong person, or you sent a wrong message to the right person. So what you have to do as a sender is to always ensure that you are sending the right message to the right person. That's how to solve the problem. The message is too long and too much detail prevents the main points being understood. This is again the fault of the sender. So what you should do is make your messages be brief as possible to allow this receiver to understand. Now, the medium, the methods in which you are sending the message. The message may be lost, so the receiver does not see it. So if the message is lost in transit, what you have to do is, it is important to insist on feedback. If no feedback is received, then that assumes that the message was lost. So whenever you send a message, ensure that you ask for a feedback. So the feedback, if it's not received, if you don't get a feedback, you should assume that the message is lost in transit.
Yes.
So the wrong channel has been used. For example, an important message was put on the notice board, which most people did not read. So you have to find the right appropriate channel to send message. That's the point there. Do you get it? If the message is sent down a long chain of command, the original meaning of the message may be lost. It could become distorted. So if it's downward and you have a long chain of command, which means you have different managers and you have few subordinates. The subordinates are remote to the managers. So messages might be distorted. Messages might be missing. What I'm saying in essence is, in the long chain of command, you have more managers. And because you have more managers, few subordinates are reporting to each manager. So if they have to communicate with each other, subordinates have to communicate with each other, they might be passing incomplete information to the next person. I might tell you, okay, I received an information. In the course of me passing that information, I missed out on something. And you are trying to pass it to someone else, you're missing out on information. So the message is distorted.
Yes.
So do you get the point there?
Yeah.
So long chain of command might cause this, because you have a lot of managers that subordinates have to report to.
Yes.
The shortest possible channel should be used to avoid this problem. So you have to think about the shortest possible channel so that you won't have problems about distortion of information. No feedback is received. If you don't receive feedback, this could be because of for example, a letter was sent to workers asking for their opinions. A meeting would have been more useful. So if you don't get a feedback, then you have to check your method of communication. So maybe you sent a letter. Why can't you have a meeting with them that you can have a one-to-one chat with?
Yeah.
So that could be the reason.
Yeah.
Breakdown of medium, for example, computer failure or postal strike. Other forms of communication should be where possible be made available. So you should always have a plan B. So if this method of communication doesn't work, try another method of communication.
Yes.
So we go to problems with the receiver. So one, they might not be listening or paying attention. So when you're passing information, you need their audience. That's why in the class, I always want students to listen. Because if you are not listening, how will you be able to get track? How will you be able to keep track of what I am saying? You are not listening. You are not paying attention. You will miss out on information. So now it is not the problem of the sender now. It's the problem of the receiver. He's not listening or she's not listening. She's not paying or he's not paying attention. So the importance of the message should be emphasized. The receiver should be asked for feedback to ensure understanding. That's why we always ask feedback. You call them back. You call them into the system. Like, oh, are you sure you are here or not?
Yes.
The receiver may not like or trust the sender. They may be unwilling to act upon his or her message. So if the receiver does not trust you in terms of the kind of information you pass, maybe because of failures in the past, you should just have to earn their trust. That is what you should do. So there should be trust between the sender and the receiver, or effective communication is unlikely. Perhaps another sender should be used who is respected by the receiver. So if you think you're not being respected or you're not being trusted, you have to seek for someone that is being trusted by the receiver. Then you send to the person. Clear?
Yes.
Problems with feedback. If there's no feedback, perhaps no feedback was asked for. Perhaps the method of communication used did not allow for feedback. An alternative method of communication might have been better that does allow feedback. So if you are not receiving the feedback, it's a problem. So what you have to do is that, one, are you sure you even asked for feedback? If you have not asked for feedback, it's better you start asking for feedback.
Yes.
And two, maybe the method you use is not ideal for that situation. Try to find an ideal medium.
Yeah.
It is received too slowly or is distorted, as with the original message. Perhaps the feedback is passing through to many people before being received by the original sender of the message. If the feedback, you are not getting a full detail about the feedback, it might be as a result of the feedback going through different channels before it gets to you. So some information might be missing. So what do you have to do? Direct lines of communication between subordinates and managers must be available. Direct communication is always more effective. So it is better you direct your information to that receiver, not send it someone to get information from someone to someone. That might distort information. So if you need information from somebody, go directly to that person. So deal directly with that link. Use the link directly to that person, that receiver,
Yes.
instead of sending someone to that receiver.
Yeah.
Is it clear? I think that's all about informal and formal method, informal and formal communication method, right?
And that finishes the chapter.
And that finishes the chapter. Okay.
Oh, it didn't finish the chapter.